Hello and welcome to episode 4 of Bat Knit Crazy. Hello and welcome to the chaos that is my life. I mean, episode 4 of Bat Knit Crazy. I am Maggie and I will be your host. Thank you for joining me. Welcome or welcome back. We are having a very chaotic moment at the moment. So thanks for joining me in the midst of my chaos. So, if you have watched my previous episode, you may know that I was talking about the small point pullover, which I have been working on by Herzog. And the knitting is done. The knitting is all done. It's all finished. But as you can tell, if you're looking at this, it has not been blocked and it has not been finished. There are cats climbing on furniture. We're just going to go with it today. Just stick with me, okay? Yeah, so I did get the knitting finished, but then I kind of lost steam when it came to doing more finishing work on it. I just haven't been able to make myself motivated to block it, and I do want to block it before I do the rest of the finishing. So the only thing left to do is to add in the little bit of a neckband that it has, and then seam up the edges, and then add a little bit of ribbing to the cuffs. So this is one of the projects that I think I will be taking with me on my upcoming travel. So, hey, get out of the yarn. I told you, it's chaos. So, sorry, my little bun is falling. This is going to be very casual, as I'm sure you can tell by now. So I have about 18 hours until my husband and I are going to be leaving to go visit his family for a week. We had to reschedule our Christmas plans because of illness. So we're going to have Christmas, even though it's March. So I don't know if any of you can relate to this, but whenever I have travel, there is the whole process of getting packed for the travel, right? You have your list of here are all the things that I need to make sure that I take with me, which, by the way, I haven't made yet for this trip. But it's a pretty low-key trip, so that's probably okay. But also, there is the process of figuring out what knitting projects am I going to take with me as well. I think this is going to go with me along with blocking mats, and I have some of these handy dandy little blocking pin combs, which I highly recommend, by the way. These are the mindful ones from Knitter's Pride, which just means they're blue instead of cream. You can get the just plain Knitter's Pride ones. I have actually several sets of these. So these are probably going to be going with me along with some blocking mats so that I can get this finished while I am away. But that is not going to take me very long. So I have a car ride of between 7 and 8 hours. And then I will have almost a whole week of mostly free time to hang around and visit with family and knit, which is ideal. It's like the best vacation, right? I get to sit around and knit and chat with people and hang out with people and then eat yummy food. And there will be, I'm sure, activities, and there will be a trip to at least one yarn store that I'm super, super excited to go to, which I will tell you all about when I return. But yeah, it's going to be a very laid back, low key hangout week. And I'm really looking forward to it. But that means that I need to have a bunch of knitting projects that are ready to go. So this has been the stress of my moment, right? Trying to figure out what to pack in the little knitting bag that I always take with me for while I'm on this trip. I also am struggling with a couple of things. So thing number one, I think I may have mentioned this before, but I've established that I will be going back to the UK in May for a conference that I attend pretty much every year there. And I love the idea, okay, this is all in my own head and I am aware of that, but I love the idea of knitting a special sweater for a trip like that. Sorry, when I was carrying everything up here to share with you, there was a bit of a catastrophe because I was trying to carry too much stuff up the stairs. And so I had this ball of yarn, which had been all neatly wound into a center pull ball. I've been winding it around itself because it spilled out all over the place. And so I'm untangling this as I'm talking to you. But I love the idea of knitting a special sweater to wear on a trip like that, because it's a big trip, right? It's a long distance, it's far away, and be able to take some nice pictures of myself wearing it while I'm, in neat locations. But also then that sort of becomes a special sweater that I always remember that trip when I wear it. And I've done this in the past, and last year the conference that I attended was earlier in the year. It was in March, and so it was quite a bit cooler. And the sweater that I made last year, that's what I should be wearing right now, not this Ruska cardigan. I'll go grab it in a minute once I get there. But the sweater that I made last time was the Cipla cardigan. I cannot remember the name of the designer, but I'll pop it up here on the screen. And I adore it. I think it's a great sweater. It's a little bit too big for me because, as we have previously discussed, being a larger person, having a lot of ease in a garment is not really, I've determined that's not really what I want, but I did knit it with the recommended amount of ease. So it's a little bit baggy, and it is DK weight, which is warmer, right? It was a wool nylon blend. It was my own Wool of Bat yarns, and it's lovely, and it has color work, and it's great, and I got to steek it, and that was so much fun. I love steeking, but it was quite warm, which was fine for when we were there in March. But I don't want to do another DK sweater when we're going to be there in May. I want to do a fingering weight sweater, or at least something that's going to be quite a bit cooler. And I love the idea of doing a cardigan because then I can just throw it on over whatever I'm wearing instead of having it be a pullover that maybe I don't want to wear all day, every day. So I am stumped when it comes to finding the right pattern. Let's put that conversation on hold for a second so that I can tell you a little bit more about this sweater. We've talked about it before, so I'm not going to get into it in too much detail, but this is my Ruska cardigan, and I knit this out of a yarn that is like 85% alpaca and 15% wool. I love it. It is super soft. It's warm without being too hot. I like the color. I like everything about it, but this is the wrong yarn for this sweater. And that was a me mistake, okay? So alpaca, and I knew this going in, but I wasn't sure how much to account for it, so I sort of didn't. But alpaca is very stretchy and drapey, which is great. But this cardigan wants to be a little more structured. So let me stand up and show you. This sweater has gotten longer since I finished it and showed it to you last time. The sleeves are a little bit longer. As you can tell, my fingertips are barely coming out, and the pockets are too low. I have to sort of bend over if I want to actually reach the pockets. Now, I will say I love this sweater. It's really comfortable. It's great to just throw over something for all the reasons I just explained. However, I will say I made the wrong yarn choice. So let this be a lesson to anyone who needs to hear it, as well as myself, that if you are doing a pattern that wants just wool yarn, superwash yarn, whatever, alpaca, or something that is mostly alpaca, probably not the right yarn to sub in for it. Like I said, I love the sweater. I have no regrets. I will wear it. I adore it. It's super comfortable. The other thing I didn't account for is because this yarn is quite fuzzy, I wore this basically all the time when I was in California. Anytime I was a little chilly, I would throw this on, and I wore it every day, in the mornings, in the evenings, all the time. But I left a little shadow on every piece of furniture I sat on of little red fluff. Every tablecloth that I leaned on had little red marks, and every time I would pull it back off of my shoulders, I was, anywhere this sweater had touched was covered with little red fluff. I did wet block this, and I did not actually notice much coming out in the water. And it's not dye. It is actually just fluff coming off of the sweater. I think that is dying down. I think it maybe has lost all the fluff that it was going to lose. But that's also something to consider that I had not adequately taken into account previously. So now that we've talked about this sweater, and again, I love the sweater, I love the pattern, nothing at all against the yarn, the sweater, the pattern, nothing. It's just, it wasn't the right combination. And I should have realized that, and I didn't. And so we've learned, and hopefully you can have the benefit of learning from my mistake. So that, since we've talked about that now, let me go run and put on my London sweater that I made for the last trip that I took to the UK. So I'll be right back. Okay, so this is my Cipla cardigan that I made last year and took on my trip to the UK. And as you can see, we've got lovely color work going on. It was steeked. I put some, I did kind of a quick and dirty job on this, but it worked. I put some, it's not seam binding. Well, actually, I think it kind of is seam binding along the inner edges, just because I was running out of time when we were going to go catch our plane. And I just wanted to make sure that the ends were sealed off really well. It does have, well, it has pockets, but it really has a pocket. So we have a pocket here, and then we have where the pocket goes, but it's actually, I haven't actually done that pocket. Shh, don't tell anybody. So it looks like it has pockets, and it does have one pocket. But I love this sweater. I really do. I really ought to wear it more often. The having 4 cats does limit the amount of my own sweaters that I tend to wear. I need to just get over it and figure, I have little tiny crochet hooks. I can pick a snag. I can fix that. But this is very warm, and luckily it's quite a bit cooler today, and I do have the ceiling fan on low, so it's not going to kill me to have this on today. But this would be too much for May. This is a DK yarn. The main color, these are all wool of bat colors. There's 3 colors here. The main color is called Terrifying Teal, and this is in a black twist DK base that I have. So it's black and undyed yarn all spun together. The black sort of comes and goes out of the skein. It's beautiful. And then I dye it with this gorgeous teal color. And so you get little spots where it's darker. And then there is a blue color in the color work, which is called Nefarious Navy. Those are both part of the Sinister Spectrum collection, which will be online sometime soon at woolofbatyarn.com. And then the gray is my worsted base in the color Full Moon. So it is actually a blend of worsted and DK for this, but I didn't have a DK base that was not the black twist, and I didn't want the black twist with the full moon. So that is last year's London sweater. I love the way it fits. It's a little bit bigger than it needs to be. I mean, I can do this, and it's still fine. So I could have made a size down and it would have been fine. That upper arm circumference is always what I'm worried about though. And this is fine for that. It fits, it's not too snug, but it's not too baggy. So, but this is way heavier than I need. And the thing about cardigans, or at least the cardigan patterns that I have been looking at, is so many of them have large expanses of stockinette. Now this was a little different because it was steeked. And I have just come off doing this sweater, which is stockinette worked flat. And I have started another little cropped cardigan, which we'll talk about in a few minutes. That's also basically just flat stockinette. It's very cute and I love the yarn that I've selected for it. But it's flat stockinette. It's knit, purl, knit, purl. We talked about this before. We get the happy little V's, but I am so bored. Even stockinette in the round at this point would be better because I'm just so over it. And a lot of the cardigan patterns that I have found that I have favorited on Ravelry that I really want to do there's a lot of stockinette. And so I've been really struggling trying to find something that I think I have the right yarn for. I have a couple of options. One option, and this is, I'm trying to use stash yarn for this. And there's a limited number of fingering weight sweater quantities of yarn that I have that are sufficient for a cardigan. I think I may have mentioned this before, but when I got really into, sorry, I'm just moving my light a little bit. When I got really into the idea of actually buying sweater quantities of yarn instead of just 1 or 2 skeins here and there, it was 2018, 2019, 2020, and I was smaller. I was a smaller person at that point. I have put on a bunch of weight since then. And so when I was buying sweater quantities, 4 skeins of fingering weight was plenty for me to be able to do a sweater, whether it was a pullover, a cardigan, whatever. Well, now I may not need all of 5 skeins, but I need to break into a 5th skein for most. We're talking full length sleeves, full body, not cropped, not short sleeve, just a full length, full sleeve sweater. I might need to break into a 5th skein of yarn, which limits my options. So one option that I have is this green yarn, and I was going to look up and see what this is if I have my 2020 knitting journal up here. Let me see if I do. I do. So this is my knitting journal from 2020. As you can see, it got very fat. Someday maybe we can go through this and I can show you some of these things, but I am pretty sure that yes. So this yarn is from One Twisted Tree. The color is called Forest Floor. It's a lovely gray green sort of color. And it is actually a very light fingering weight yarn. 75% superwash merino, 25% nylon, 460 yards per ball. I had completely finished, not woven in the ends, but I had completely finished the knitting of the Riverside pullover with this. And I had been trying it on. I thought it was going to be fine. I tried it on again after the whole body was done. I don't think I had done the sleeves. I don't think I had done the sleeves, but I tried it on again after the whole body was done, and I just was not happy with it. So I frogged it, and I have the equivalent of 5 balls of this. It's in slightly more than 5 balls at this point, but I have 500 grams of it. So I have plenty to do a sweater with this. And the other option is a yarn that I bought actually the last time I was in London. Let me grab one that is not wound up yet. This is by the Uncommon Thread. It's a BFL single. The color is called London Mist, which is very appropriate. And it is this gorgeous purpley blue color. It's purple, but it's sort of a bluey purple. It's not a pink purple. And then it actually has, I don't know if you can see it, but there's some little teeny tiny flecks. There's red fluff on this from my Ruska cardigan. Surprise, surprise. There's some little tiny flecks of blue from probably, I'm guessing, from where the dye split when it was in the pot. So in my experience, I mean, I am an indie dyer. I do use acid dyes for wool of bat yarns, and purple especially, in my experience anyway, is generally blue dye powder and red dye powder in a specific proportion. And so you can sometimes in purples get little tiny pops of blue or even red that show up. And there's a little red one. I don't know if you can see it, but there's a little red one down towards the bottom. And I just think it looks cool. And I love the overall color of this. But I also have 5 of these that I got the last time I was in London, which would be very appropriate, right? For a London sweater to use yarn called London Mist that I bought when I was in London. Okay, so what am I going to do with them? This has been the other problem. I have gone back and forth. I have a little stack of patterns here. So there have been 2 that I've been going back and forth on. One of them, and I don't know how to accurately pronounce either of these for sure, so just go with me. It's one of those days, just bear with me. So I think this one is the Maema cardigan by Pip and Pin. Megan Nodecker is the designer. And it's a really pretty cardigan with this lovely honeycomb pattern on the back and on the fronts. And then the sleeves are stockinette. And I thought, okay, honeycomb pattern that breaks up the stockinette. It's not just miles of back and forth knit purl. And I did a gauge swatch with this green in both stockinette and the honeycomb brioche pattern. And I just wasn't happy with how it was looking. I have not tried a gauge swatch of that with this London Mist. I might do that, I might not, because I think I have stumbled on a pattern that I like even better. The shape of this pattern, and I'm not going to show you any of the pattern, I'm just going to show you the schematic. So this is the shape. So it's almost like kimono-esque, where it has the, what's it called? They're not batwing sleeves, but they're the very drapey open sleeves. It would be very comfortable. It would be the perfect thing to just throw over an outfit. The lighting is weird. I have lighting up here, and I'm trying. I'm new at this. Have I mentioned I'm new at this? I don't know what I'm doing. But it would be great to just throw on over whatever it is that I'm wearing. No buttons, very casual, but the honeycomb brioche adds a little bit of elegance to it. But since I wasn't happy with my gauge swatches for that, I've been looking and looking and looking and looking, and I keep opening up. I'm one of those people where if I'm trying to decide on a pattern, I'll go on my computer, I'll open up multiple tabs, one tab for each pattern I'm thinking about. And then I'll go back and forth between them, and I'll look at things like, what size needle does this take? Is this toothpick knitting? I don't feel like knitting a sweater on size 1s right now. So anything that's, you know, really small needles, let's take those out of the running. You know, what do I think of the yarn that I think I want to use with whatever pattern it is that I'm looking at? Do I think that it would work? If not, it goes away. So the other one that I landed on is a pattern by Joji Locatelli called Sammal. And it is, I think she calls it sand stitch. And then it's got these lovely cables down the front. This one does have buttons. And I'm really leaning towards doing this. And I could use either of these colors, I think would be fine. However, today has been gauge swatch day for me, because I have made 2 gauge swatches for this in sand stitch with the green and 2 gauge swatches for this with the purple. And I don't know that I'm happy with any of them. And I'll tell you why. I am having such a hard time meeting gauge. I almost said recipe. The pattern, I mean, it kind of is a recipe, but the pattern calls for a size 4 needle. And I started a gauge swatch with the green, which again, this is light fingering. The yarn recommended in the pattern is regular fingering. In fact, I think it's just 400 yards. It's 213 yards for 50 grams. So that would be 426. So it's sort of between the traditional 400 yards per and what I'm using, which is 460. I started a gauge swatch on size 4s and I went, there's no way. So I went ahead and went up to a 5 and did a full gauge swatch. And then I didn't think that was going to be big enough either. So then I went up to a 6 and did a gauge swatch. And neither one of those. Now, I have done the thing, right? I knitted the gauge swatch and I did soak it, and then I pulled them out and I just laid them out. I tried to sort of stretch them out a little bit. I didn't want to like pull them and pin them so that they would be exactly 4 inches, because I don't want to have to do that with the sweater. I want the sweater to not look stretched. But neither one of them is wide enough. I can get the height just fine, which usually row height is where I have a problem, but row height is a little bit less of a concern because you can always do a few more rows if you're worried that it's not going to be long enough. But I cannot get my gauge, my row gauge. Is that right? Yes. Yes? I can't get it wide enough. Is that row gauge? Or height? What's the other? There's row gauge, and then there's another word for it. I can't remember it. Anyway, I can't make it wide enough. So with this one, I thought, okay, and she does say, I looked through the comments on Ravelry for the first time ever, because I was like, how is it possible that I am having this much difficulty getting gauge? I don't understand. Has anybody else had this problem? Well, somebody else did have this problem, and she did respond back to their comment and said that the yarn that she used blooms a lot when you block it, and you know, maybe it's just it just needed a different yarn. So that was when I came up and grabbed my London Mist, and I knitted a gauge swatch using size 4, which is what the pattern wants, and soaked it, laid it out, did the same thing. Still wasn't getting the right, like I wasn't getting the right width. I could if I stretched it and pinned it, but that's not what I'm after. So then I did a gauge swatch with this using a size 5. Guess what? Still doesn't want to be wide enough. So those are actually downstairs. My blocking mats and things are up here in my knitty space. My yarn cave, my yarn loft, whatever you want to call this room. They're all still damp. Nothing is dry yet. So when I go back downstairs in the kitchen, which is where they're all sitting, I am going to take some blocking mats and my pins and a ruler and try to see. I want to see what would be required to get it pinned. Like, how much is it actually going to look stretched? Because I do not want to go up to a 6 in this. I just think it's going to be, I mean, I might have to, but I want to see what happens with the gauges, with the swatches that I've already done. So that's my hope. One of these two sweaters will be my London sweater. Stay tuned to future episodes to find out which one I can actually get gauge with and which of these yarns it ends up being, because it's going to be one of these two. I can 98.2% guarantee it's going to be one of these two. But I don't know. I'm struggling. I'm having such a hard time with it. But neither one of those is just flat stockinette. So that will help my sanity, because the flat stockinette, I'm over it. But like I said before, I have started, let me move some of these things out of the way. I have started another little cropped cardigan that is flat stockinette. Let me move you over there. And what I have started is, let me find the pattern so I can show you the cute picture of it. What I've started is the Pop Crop Cardi by Ambah O'Brien. Super cute, right? And the yarn that I'm using, let me grab one that's not been knitted with yet. I need to wind up the other two of these. So this is from Honey Girl Farms. And this is their Silky DK, which is 75% superwash merino, 25% mulberry silk. So incredibly soft. And there's a little bit of a shine to it, and it's gorgeous. This color is called There Will Be No Silly Wand Waving in This Class, which was part of their Harry Potter Club in September of 2020. DK weight. And I am pairing this one with this blue. So this multicolor is take the label off. This color is the main color. And then for the edges, the bottom of the cuffs and the bottom of the body, and then the neckband around the front, is this beautiful blue color, which I think will look so nice with it. I'm just trying to find good contrast so you can see them together. Again, this one also fell down the stairs, but it was less of a disaster. So this will be the accent color. And this one, same base. I gotta look in my book to see what it's called. It is dun, 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 dun. Mountain Lake. Mountain Lake, which is a gorgeous, gorgeous blue. So let me see if I can get this. This is just a disaster here. Got all sorts of things falling out all over the place. Yeah, I might actually want to rewind this before I pop it in my travel bag. But I've gotten through, since we last spoke, I have gotten through the first ball of yarn. This is what I have left of the first ball. I am not alternating skeins. Don't come for me. It's not a thing that I'm doing. And I made it, I was going to stop at the end of the row here, which is the front. It's like right here. I was going to stop at the end, and then I thought, no, I can do my join at the raglan increase. But this is how we are looking for the color of this, which I am just loving. And I'll have the blue underneath and on the neckband, which I just think is so pretty. I'm in love with this. In case you hadn't figured it out, blues, greens, purples, some reds. Those are my colors. I am a cool color girl, except for a little bit of red. And then black, gray, silver, pewter, all those lovely neutrals. So this will be going with me, and I think I can probably get this little Cardi done on my trip, but I need something to break it up, which is why I want to get started on something else while I am away. Okay, so I don't have any finished objects this week. I mean, technically the knitting is almost done on the small point pullover, but it's not actually a finished object yet. So these are sort of works in progress and things that I'm thinking about, right? Oh, I did want to say one note on the small point pullover. What I did, and I'm not going to show you like the whole page because it's, I don't want to show you the pattern because it's a paid pattern. But what I did, let me show you along this edge, if you can even see this. So the stripes are 28 rows of each color. And to keep track of that, as I was working the pattern, this is part of the reason why I love a paper pattern. I actually got a gray pen and a blue pen, and I just made my hash marks in whatever color it was that I was working so that I could very easily see how many rows I had done. The yarn that I selected, I'm a big fan of, but it is, and I talked about this before, but because of this construction of the yarn, it's kind of difficult to count rows. Normally I would just go through and count them and it would be easy. But this yarn just didn't really allow for that. So that's what I did instead, to be able to keep track of not only how many rows I had done in each section that I needed to do, but also how many rows of each color that I had done. So just a little idea if you're doing a pattern like that where it's striped. That's a little trick that I have been doing. Okay, so spoiler alert. If you are currently working on the Muppet Shawl and you do not want any spoilers, fast forward. I thought about either not talking about it or only showing you the back, but I thought, oh, that's no fun. It's no fun. So if you don't want to see it, fast forward. This is, and I will show you the back first, just because the back looks cool too. And I was very good. So I finished clue number 1, right? Which clue number 1 starts, this is the back. Keep in mind, this is the back. But I started clue number 1, which goes to here, and then I went into clue number 2. You want to see the front? It's so cute. Ta-da! Look at this. Look at how fun this is. This is so fun. I love it. I am having such a great time. And I love the way, so the color that I am using is a set from Miss Babs that was put together specifically for the Muppet Shawl knit along, and this one is called Beat Drums. So it's this pewter color and then shades of yellow, orange, and red for animal. I love animal. But look at that. Isn't that fun? This has been so much fun. However, the section that I am on, which is in clue 2, clue 3 has come out. I will be printing it and taking it with me on my trip. But I'm trying to get through the end of clue 2. And I am stuck. I am stuck on a section that I have started now 3 times. I've counted everything. I've almost reached out to the designer, and then I did all the math again, and I was like, no, the math is right. But for some reason, even though the math is right and I have the right number of stitches, every time I do it, I'm ending up with the wrong number of stitches before the marker, and I cannot figure out why. And I'll be honest, it has made me put it in timeout for the last few days because I've done it 3 times and I'm sort of hacked off with it. I'm frustrated with it. I'm frustrated with myself. I don't know why I can't figure it out. So I'm going to take it. I'm going to try to get it figured out. And I am going to take the next clue and all the colors so that I can continue to work on it. But yeah, that's driving me a bit bananas. Okay, so in the category of projects that have been on hold that I am considering taking out of hibernation and working on finishing them, there are several of these. I'm only going to talk about one today because it's the one that I'm thinking about the most. And this could potentially be a replacement for the things that we discussed that could be my London sweater. But in the process of trying to decide what to take with me on this trip, it occurred to me, hey, if I want a quick payoff for a fingering weight sweater, I have some sitting over where you can't see them that are partially done, so I don't have to start from scratch. And one of those is in this big old Ziploc bag. As much as I love project bags, I do end up with projects in Ziploc bags, partially because they're clear and you can see what you're doing. Okay, so I do not have the pattern for this with me. I would probably actually need to reprint it because I don't know where it ended up. I don't remember when I started this, but it has been a minute since I started this. But I do know that it is it's called Lil Cardi by, excuse me, Julie Knits in Paris. And it is super cute. I am using Malabrigo sock in Candombe, which is, again, I know this is going to come as a shock. Purpley blue, lovely, oh, there's cat hair, purpley blue yarn. I know. You never saw that coming. I know. But this one is partially done. I have already taken the sleeves off. And we are at the point where, so we've got the sleeves off, and then we're at the point at the bottom where we have this lovely little design. It's not really quite ribbing. I don't remember what it is. I would have to print the pattern, and I would have to see what needle size. Now this is before I started doing gauge swatches and altering needle sizes. So whatever the pattern says the needle size should be, that's what I was using. But I just have everything on cords. So this is apparently where a bunch of my mindful cords ended up. Good to know. But this one, the body is almost done. I think there's just maybe a couple more inches of this design at the bottom before you bind off. So I might actually take this one with me as sort of a quick payoff project. I have 2 more unwound skeins of the yarn, and then I have what I'm guessing is pretty close to a full ball that is attached to the sweater. So I've got plenty of yarn. All I would have to do really is print the pattern and figure out what needle size I need to attach. And there we go, a half finished project already ready to go. In fact, I could even try this on and see. I don't know how long ago I started this, so I don't know if it's going to be bordering on way too big, too small. It's probably going to be just fine. So I know that the bottom is bound up in a cord that's shorter than the circumference would actually be, but I can still try it on around the shoulders to see. It's maybe a little bit tight across the back. Maybe a little bit. I wonder if I started this in 2020. I might have. I am getting a little warm, so we're gonna say goodbye to my London sweater. And I'm just gonna have my cute Don't Touch My Yarn shirt, which is from teaturtle.com in case you're curious. Let's see. So just as a quick aside, I'm not going to go through the whole thing, but this is pretty much the standard format that my knitting journals take. I tend to get covers that say knit fast, dye warm, volume, whatever. This was the first one I did, so there's no volume number on it. But this one was from 2020. And one of the things that I did in 2020 was I was actually putting in a copy of the pattern. So like, for example, and this one, I don't go quite this overboard anymore, but this was for the Traveler's End sweater. And this was the book that went, I got a I think it was a 16-month journal that I got. So that's why it says October 2019, because this one actually started, I think, in September of 2020. But this was for the Traveler's End sweater. I put the date started, the date I completed it, the size I made, some little notes. I actually did this was one of the few times in my life that I did a gauge swatch, and then I photocopied the gauge swatch. I had tried putting the gauge swatch in the book, but you want to talk about a fast way to make a book too fat to close. You put knitted gauge swatches on every page. That does not work. So I actually photocopied the gauge swatch and then cut it out and stuck it in here. I've got the yarn tags, and then here is the pattern, and it is the whole pattern that I printed out like half size and made into a little booklet, if I can get it. So the whole pattern is actually in here. And I did that for basically everything that I made that year. All of the patterns are in here in full. So yeah, and then there were calendar pages and a little picture of my yarn space at the time. And yeah, it was a whole thing. It was a whole thing. I am not normally much of a journaler, but with my knitting journal, I do tend to go a little bit overboard. So let's just see if this one is in here. I don't think it is. I must have done it after that. Yeah, it must have been after that because it's not in here. And then in November and December of that year, I lost momentum. And so, yeah, this was December of 2020. I was done. I was over it. I was like, nope, I'm finished. So there's nothing. I'm trying to be better this year. These covers that you have maybe seen before, if you've seen seen me hold up my knitting journal, these covers I put on every year, whatever my current knitting journal is. I take these off and I put them onto the current one. They just come off and then I can pop them right back on. Of course, they're not going on quite as easily as they normally do because I'm filming this, and so the world has to tell me. But yeah, so there we go. So I just have a front cover and a back cover with some cute stickers and fun stuff. And then here is so that we are on volume 5. And I forgot that 0 was year 1, 2020 was year 1. And so when I went, oh, it's 2024, it's volume 4. So I actually got the cover printed with volume 4 and then went, oops, that's not right. And so I just took a little piece of Post-it note and put a 5 on it and stuck it on there. But this will be the cover once we get to 2025. I'll take these off, put them on next year's, and that'll be the cover that you'll see on the book. So not going to go through this in too much more detail. We will at some point when I have like nothing else to talk about that time I want to record. We'll go through and I'll show you like project pages and things like that. But just as a little aside, I thought maybe this would be in 2020, but it was not. I could look it up on Ravelry, but it's not that big a deal. I started it several years ago. I don't know when. The only reason that I would be curious is to know what size I was making. In fact, I will go ahead and look it up on Ravelry if I even have it in my projects. I'm not the best about that, if I'm honest. Let's see. Okay, little Cardi. I started it in 2022 in February. I did not put in here what size I was making, but I should be able to figure that out based on my stitch count. So I'm not terrifically worried about that. And then with blocking and everything, who knows? I don't know. I might take it and work on it and see if I can make it work, because I do think it's pretty. And I haven't frogged it, and it would be a quicker payoff for a fingering weight sweater than starting one from scratch. So maybe I'll just do that instead of continuing to hem and haw. Maybe I'll give myself some more time to decide what I want my next from scratch fingering weight project to be. I even have some really cute little buttons that are like iridescent for it that I might use for it. I don't know. They were the closest I could find that would look good with it. So the only other thing that I wanted to talk about today, this will be a little bit of a shorter episode, was a couple of acquisitions that I had ordered from Etsy sellers a while ago, and they just took a little while to get to me. And so I wanted to talk about them a little bit because I was super excited to get them. I've been waiting and they're finally here, and I'm super stoked about that. So the first one is some more mohair. Don't come for me. I'm sorry. I know, but it's a thing. And the mohair fairy has walloped me upside the head, and I'm stuck. I'm stuck on the mohair. But these are from the company, the Little Foxes Knits. Little Foxes. So cute. And I could have resisted, except that they are wicked color theme. They had a whole set of wicked colors, and I could have easily just completely just jumped off the ledge and ordered a ton of stuff. And I was really good, and I limited it, and I only got 2 colors of mohair. Sadly, they only had one of them and 2 of the other. So again, by virtue of luck, maybe, I don't know, I was limited in what I was able to acquire. But the first one that I only was able to get one of, but I'm still totally in love with it. It's called No One Mourns the Wicked. Look at this. Look at it. Isn't it pretty? It's so pretty. It's such a beautiful green. I don't know. Part of the reason why I have the light is so I'm hoping you can actually see colors well. But that is No One Mourns the Wicked. And then this one is I'm Through Accepting Limits, which I got 2 of. And it is like the most perfect dark purple, beautiful, gorgeous, soft fluffiness ever. I am in love. And these are both 72% kid mohair, 28% silk, 50-gram things. Frequently mohair seems to come in 25-gram, but these are 50-gram, 459 yards each. So I am super excited about these. Do I have any idea what I'm gonna do with them? No. Is that okay? Yes. I'm gonna put them up on the mohair shelf, and I will be churning away trying to figure out what I'm gonna do with those. I'm starting to have a little bit of an idea what I might do with this one, but we're not gonna talk about it yet. We'll talk about it when we get there, and that may not be for quite a while. So that was from the Little Foxes. And then the other thing, which I've been so incredibly excited for, is from Creative with Clay. Also on Etsy. I think he does have his own website as well. But he is a potter, right? He makes pottery pieces, which, I mean, I love pottery, full stop. I'm kind of addicted to it, but he makes pottery that looks knitted. I have a mug that he made that is absolutely gorgeous, that is over on a shelf right now, but I will, at some point, I will use a mug other than my spiderweb mug. This is my standard. I use it all day, every day. But at some point I will use the other one. But then he's recently introduced some little dishes, not like food dishes, but like little, I mean, I'm going to use it probably for stitch markers, but look at this. Look at the definition of this. Is that not gorgeous? And I got it in this light purple color. And he's got his little name etched on the back. I don't know if you can see that, but it's there. And it's just like, it's not like three-dimensional, like super deep, but you can feel the happy little V's. It's a happy little V tray. I love it. I love it. I'm so excited about it. I definitely recommend that you go check out Creative with Clay on Etsy. His stuff is gorgeous. He has not just the regular like stockinette knit stitch, but he has some things with like a knitted lace pattern in them. Gorgeous. Gorgeous. Mwah. Love it. I would love one of everything in every color because they're so amazing. So I wanted to share those with you because I was so super excited to get those. And I think we have now come to the end. I mean, I could keep talking for a very long time, but I think we have come to the end of the things that I wanted to discuss with you this week. So last time I recorded, I completely forgot to tell you that you can find me on Facebook at woolofbat. You can find me on Instagram at woolofbat. Address is in the description box if you want to send me an email. Please feel free to like, subscribe, comment, let me know what you want to talk about. If you do want a more in-depth look at any of the projects that I've done or the yarn journal, what do you want to talk about? What do you want to talk about? All this yarny goodness. There's so much of it that we could be discussing. So what do you want to hear about? Let me know in the comments. And yeah, we will talk again soon. It will not be another month. I do not intend to get sick again. We're gonna make it through just fine. And until we talk again, thank you so much for watching and keep making magic with sticks and string. Bye.